Hello, good people of the internet. Welcome to the Unlearning Playground, an everyday life podcast by Chetan Naram. Before I jump into this episode, I just wanted to ask you for a very quick favor. If you are listening to this content and you see that it has some value, please rate this show and provide it a review on your app of choice. That small effort from your side would be of immense value to me to be able to reach out to more and more people with time. And I truly believe that amidst all the noise that the internet is flooded with these days, an authentic act of rating, reviewing, and sharing something that is innately valuable to you is really the only way in which we can hope to make the internet great again. So go on, play your part. Anyhow, I hope you enjoy the episode. Let's jump into it now. I have been wanting to do an episode on human biases and logical fallacies ever since I started this podcast because it is so central to the work, to the majority of the work that needs to be done by all of us to grow up. And if anyone asks me why that is the case, I tell them this one quote, which is one of the most profound ones I've ever heard. We see the world as we are, not as the world is. I repeat myself. We see the world as we are, not as the world is. I've heard so many versions of this quote that I cannot really say whom I attribute it to anymore, but that is beside the point anyway. If you have never come across this quote before, or have never really given it much thought, just hear me out. I'll be building on it for the next few minutes here. Our perceptions color the world we see. Our perceptions, in that sense, also limit the world we see. Have you ever had a feeling that everything around you is absolutely bullshit? The job you're in, the book you are reading, the course you are pursuing, the person you're in a relationship with, the people around you, etc. etc. I'm sure you have. If you have lived enough years in this world, I'm sure you have. We all have. And by the same token, I'm also sure that all of you who are listening to this right now have also come out of it on some day and faced with the same job, the same book, the same course, or the same people, you have felt, that's not so bad after all. Now, what exactly happens there? How do you understand the dynamism of polar opposite feelings about the exact same thing? The answer, of course, is that your perception of something or of someone at both those moments depended more on you than that particular something or someone. Let me say that again. At both these moments, your perception of something or someone depended more on you than on that something or someone. How often do we acknowledge that? How often do we realize that? That is a question to ask yourself, and you must permit yourself to sit honestly with the answer. Welcome to the world of human cognitive biases and also logical fallacies. These biases and these fallacies operate under the hood on so many levels that it is almost mind-boggling when you encounter them at first. So, fasten your seatbelts and we're going to take a topsy-turvy ride through three levels our biases and fallacies work towards us. Of course, the distinction of having to say that there are three levels is an arbitrary one, and I've just made it up to get the point across. Okay, so the first, of course, is like the example I just gave you. The adjectives that pop into our heads at any moment are fueled, in part, of course, by everything else going on inside us at that moment. If you are having a bad day, if you are in a bad mood, the same episode of Friends, which otherwise would have you in a laugh riot, would not even warrant a single reaction from you, except maybe a little pity for whoever was getting their leg pulled in Central Park that day, right? Now, even if you didn't get the Friends reference, or if you don't like the show for whatever reason, I hope you can still catch the drift of what I'm trying to convey. For another example, I know that I have myself had days when my favorite dish didn't really taste as good as it would have if only I was in a better mood while eating it. Now that should be relatable. I hope so. We've all had these experiences. The important thing to understand is that more than the episode or the food or any of those experiences, it is the one who's having those experiences that determines the adjectives that describe that moment for them. At any moment, we see the world as we are at that moment. Now, on to the second level. Our biases and our perceptions work on another deeper level. As human organisms, our brains have been conditioned by years of natural evolution to behave in certain patterns and react in certain ways to certain signals, and we just can't help it. Ever heard of the hollow face mask illusion? It is a very popular optical illusion, and you can very easily check it out on any video on YouTube. In short, imagine a hollow face mask with the protruding nose pointing towards you. So the nose of the mask is pointing towards you, and now the mask is rotated in any direction, and by the time the nose has gone to the background, you would expect to see a depression, right? Because obviously the protruding nose is facing the other side now. But you'd be surprised to see that we actually see the nose to be protruding outwards again. It's actually quite fascinating. And the scientific explanation for that is that our brains have evolved over the years to see faces protruding outwards. And we cannot help but see it in that manner. We see the world as we are, not as the world is. You know, the same bench in that neighborhood park, which appears obviously green to you, might appear confusingly red to a colorblind person. The same gesture from a random person might be interpreted as a sexual advance by a hormone ridden 21-year-old, or just a friendly wave by a 52-year-old. The mind of a dehydrated person or a person who hasn't been out in the sun for quite a few days in a row now is more likely to produce depressing and even suicidal thoughts. Now, this is all just basic biology, just the way our bodies are wired. And this wiring colors the way we perceive the world around us. Now, one more level, the third one, at which our perceptions color the world we experience, is at the level of our conditioning. In short, the story in our heads of the world around us. A person who has grown up hustling their way through life, competing even with their siblings for the love of their parents, competing with their classmates for the highest scores in their exams, etc. etc. Such a person may see life as a game of one-upping everyone around him, as a race, even as a dog eat dog world in an extreme scenario. While another person who has an inclination towards, and also due to a variety of factors, had, let's say, the opportunity to be more easy with their pursuits. Now, such a person might go about looking at life as a means of expressing their most creative endeavors, almost going through life as a musical number instead of a journey. Both of them now have very different models of the world in their heads. Both of them are right, but both of them are limited. Both of them are incomplete, especially if they do not see the other side of the equation. Which brings us to the gist of why we need to become aware of our own particular biases. Incomplete is something no one really wants to be. And one sure way to remain incomplete is to remain completely immersed in one's own thoughts, ideas, and biases, and never really examining or challenging them. At any rate, it is suitable for us as a species to expect our adults to recognize where they themselves are wrong where they themselves are biased or incomplete, and correct themselves. How else would they lead the children and the adolescents? One quote that comes to my mind right now is one of Wittgenstein. He said that the limit of my language is the limit of my world. Quite simply, it means that the limit to which I understand life is determined by the limit to which I have words for, or mental images for, or at least metaphors for. Which is why the next few episodes of this podcast are going to be dedicated to understanding and putting into words the numerous different cognitive biases and logical fallacies we human beings function under. Now, there are a whole bunch of them, and I'm sure that as I embark upon this journey to collate all of them in a digestible manner, I will miss out on some. But I can guarantee that any listener who goes through this road with me would arrive at the end more equipped than when they started. More equipped on how to point out and catch themselves when they are not being the best version of themselves and are not being objective enough. More equipped on how to point out to the ones they love and care about when they are not being the best versions of themselves and are not being objective enough. And very importantly, more equipped on how to wrap their heads around the fact that all of us are more same than different. The ones we love and also the ones we love to hate. The difference between man and man is one of degree and not of kind, as that man Swami Vivekananda said. Now, one thing I wish to call out before we embark on this journey is that we are not taking this journey to be more ashamed of ourselves, to feel low about not being perfect and all of that kind of jazz. Not at all. The idea, in fact, is just the opposite. The idea is to become aware of yourself in a manner that enables you to accept yourself as you are. Almost as a parent lovingly accepts their child, you as an adult have to lovingly accept your inner child, as my man Rocco calls it, and tap it on its back by saying, it's okay, it's in your nature to be so. And to be able to do that authentically, a certain degree of understanding is needed. That understanding is what we are embarking upon in this journey. To be honest, I cannot wait to get down to work and design the coming episodes. But I wish to end this episode with a little story. Those of you who know me know that I love to tell stories, especially when they drive home the point in a manner that no amount of reasoning and logic can. So here goes. A man once visited a Zen master and asked him, I am new in this town, sir, and am looking to move here. How is this place? The master asked him back, what is it like in your current town? The man replied, it's horrible. Everyone is mean, everyone is selfish. I just don't like it there. The master replied, don't move here, son. It would be pretty much the same here too. Later the same day, another man visited the master and asked him the same question. I'm looking for a new town to move to. Would you advise me to start living in your town? The master asked him the same question. What is it like in your current town? The man replied, it's good, it's great. Everyone is friendly, I have a lot of good friends there, and people are generally helpful. I love it there. The master replied, you can move here. It would be pretty much the same here too. Now the point of the story isn't that there aren't environments you shouldn't be moving out of. Absolutely not. There absolutely are situations which you should permit yourself to walk away from. But that is a topic for another episode. For the purpose of this episode, the point of this story is that we see the world as we are, not as the world is. And if that didn't seem to you to be the point of this story, that should tell you more about yourself than about the story. Listen to it again. Thank you for spending these past few minutes with me here. As usual, The show notes contain the links to my Instagram page and my YouTube channel too. If the content you just consumed seemed to be of value to you, please consider checking out these channels too. I'm sure you'll dig it. And of course, it goes without saying, share this with your community if you think it will help them. Until next time, peace out.